Hi and welcome to another Photoshop manipulation video, and for this week guys what we're going to be doing is focusing on how I went about creating this T-Rex style image. Now for this one I used 4 different photos, and the first one is this one here. This is the background with the sky in that. The next one up here, this is a jungle shot I think in Vietnam. Next one up is obviously the T-Rex which is chasing through the jungle, and finally we have this man here who's just about to get eaten by T-Rex. So without further ado, let's jump into the video and I'll showcase exactly how I went about putting this together. So first of all, what I've done was place the jungle image into Photoshop, use the color selector and then use that to remove the sky. After positioning the jungle image, I then placed the actual sky that we're going to be using into the background, and then on both layers what I did was use color balance, exposure and levels to actually bring everything together so it makes the two actually really match. And obviously we wanted that nighttime scene as well. Then what I did was use just a paintbrush and I went over to the areas that were fringed from actually removing the sky from the jungle. Now I found this was to be a lot easier just to quickly go over, paint things in and stuff like that, because what you get is a lot of white fringing obviously because the original picture was obviously shot in the daylight. Now once you put that into the night, the darker sky from behind will highlight all that fringing. So I just basically went along with the brush, didn't take me too long, and then just took color samples of the areas that I was painting in and just painted over them, and that way I felt that just tied the image in really well. So a little bit of a little process to actually put this together, but it was worth it in the long run. And like I say, it didn't really take too long. Okay, it's not the most funnest job in the world, I will say that, but these little things that we do have to do to try and make an image work all nicely too. Now I will say though, the middle bit there, what I should have done really was just left it alone, because that's where the dinosaur was going. Another little mistake there, really could have saved myself a little bit of time. You know, I should really look where the position of say like the other elements are going to be in the image. Then obviously if they're in the way of certain things, then you just leave those kind of areas alone, then that way you got less to do. So that was a little bit of a mistake on my part. I don't know why I didn't actually think of that at the particular time. Maybe I just want to give myself some extra work, but as you can see, we're still just painting things in, just highlighting it, just making sure that it actually looks totally perfect. Once we got this bit out of the way, this is the little most fiddly part I would say out the way, and there's just a couple of little bits inside the tree as well that was actually removed. Now next up was the dinosaur. So once we placed the dinosaur in there, very easy to do because once I downloaded it, it was just a PNG anyway. Now with the soldier I used 2 different ways of cutting it out. First of all, I used select and mask, and then there's just certain areas that weren't cut out. But I will say that I found it a lot easier to actually go around using the pen tool for these areas and just cut things out that particular way. So just use like a balance between the two just to find what was best, and then just remove little areas that I needed to, because certain areas were quite small on this character, especially from the straps and other bits like that as well, and especially around the gun as well. So once we corrected all that, we put all that together, we cut it all out. I missed a little bit there with the barrel, I will say, but once we sorted all that out, it looked absolutely fantastic. And I was really lucky with the soldier because he's in the most spectacular pose ever for this particular image, because I wanted to use a different photo to start off with the guy jumping over the log, but the photo was really bad quality, and I've come across this one. I thought this was absolutely perfect. So now what I'm trying to do is just trying to paint in some darker areas. Now I'm going to change this up a little bit as it goes on and stuff. I just kind of like experimenting with where I wanted some light, where I want some dark, what's going to look a bit better. Obviously now, as you can see, I'm painting that onto the dinosaur as well. Now obviously with the dinosaur and the guy later on, there's no point in me explaining it over every single time, but basically once again I'm using brightness. I dropped the brightness pretty much right the way down on everything, because obviously this is shot for the nighttime we want. Then I play with the exposure just a little bit, and then I use color balance as well. Now obviously we needed some brighter sides onto say like the dinosaur, and also we wanted brighter sides onto the actual jungle itself. So for that I just use exposure, bump the exposure up just a little bit, and just paint some areas in which I wanted to be a little bit brighter. Or if it has been quite a lot been darkened, what I can do then is then use like a black brush and basically paint away areas that I would like to come back as brighter, especially like you're seeing on this dinosaur here. So it's just basically going over now, just painting in certain areas that I wanted to actually see to be, you know, obviously where I wanted shadows to be, where I wanted things to be brighter. And it's just a little bit of jumping back and forth until I kind of like found the right kind of like areas that I actually wanted to be brighter, because I didn't want everything to be really, really bright from the jungle and stuff. I wanted some shades to really bring some dramatic value to actually the actual image itself. With this one now, what we're moving on to is the soldier. Like I say, it's pretty much exactly the same sort of process, just messing around with different values. Like at the moment, I'm messing around with the hue and saturation, just trying to bring it in so that he actually really blends in with the background a little bit better. Because as I was changing the actual brightness on this particular character, dropped everything down, like the contrast, even though I dropped the contrast and that lot down as well, a lot of the colors were popping quite a lot, and they were a little bit, they looked a little bit weird and whatnot else. So I just used like the hue and saturation sliders just to try and get rid of that, so that he actually blended into the scene just a little bit better. Now, as you can see, what I'm trying to do is, once again, just trying to paint over certain areas that I missed in regards to where I wanted. So I wanted some more shadows there into the corners where the tree trunk is, and to the flower as well, because the light was going to hit that. But I wanted that area to a little bit more darker, so the focus is more onto the actual person in itself. So this, I found, was looking a lot better as we were going through, just changing a few things up and whatnot else. Obviously, I wanted to make that side of the right hand side of the soldier there just to be a little bit more darker, because he had quite a lot of bright spots, obviously, from where the original photo was taken. Now we're going to paint in some highlights and whatnot else. So brighten up the sky in the background. Then I placed this one as it was a solid color, pressed it, changed it to screen, dropped it down. Wasn't working too well. As you can see right now, it's a little bit odd. Maybe I was looking at the screen a little bit too long. And I thought, yeah, that looked pretty good. It really didn't. It looked very odd indeed. So change this up. What I did then was I had a break, actually, as you can tell by the UL colors have changed on my Photoshop. I had a little bit of a break, come back, change that to soft light, and now it's trying to add in the actual highlights to all the actual picture itself. So first of all, starting off with the dinosaur. Now, I know a lot of people go really crazy with the rim lights and other bits and pieces like that. I like a bit of light on this particular subjects and stuff. But for most of my images, I don't like to go too crazy. I think it really ruins the picture, and it takes everything away from the actual image itself. So personally for me, this I found was, just nice and subtle, just to bring some light out from what's coming from the background and just shine it there on the dinosaur. And I made sure that I put some on the teeth to really accentuate his teeth, especially on the side that the light's shining on, and that to make it a little bit more dramatic. There we popped out the eye as well, put some exposure, just pop the exposure up there just to bring his eye out a little bit. So that was a little bit brighter, so I made it a little bit more dramatic. So basically, as you can see, just painting over some areas. Now I'm going on to the actual jungle image. So we've got all these obviously leaves and everything else into the background here. So obviously, if we're going to have that kind of light shining onto the dinosaur, we're going to need that on other subjects that are around the actual dinosaur as well, including the tree trunks, the leaves, the branches and stuff like that. So I'm just painting in those kind of areas, nothing too crazy, not trying to go onto every single leaf or anything else like that, just trying to highlight little areas and stuff like that, just where like some light could be reflecting, just to bring the eye around the image a lot better. And obviously, just so that it doesn't look a bit weird if we just got the dinosaur highlighted. So once again, as you can see now, I've got a few of the leaves down the bottom, because especially want to do those leaves down the bottom as well, because what we've got is the obviously the soldier there as well, and I'm going to put some subtle highlights on him as well. Obviously, then we need some sort of light to be shining then onto the leaves. Next thing up, as you can see, is the tree trunks. Obviously, these tree trunks are very prominent in the actual image themselves, so they definitely need to be doing. Good thing with this one though, the light source was shining onto those trees anyway, so we just basically just brought up where the highlights were on the tree, just used like the hue and saturation, the color balance, and just actually matched everything into the picture and just basically painted onto those particular sides. Now for the next one up is obviously the soldier. Now this one was a little bit more fiddlier. Basically for these, what I tend to do if it's a little bit more fiddly than what I usually do is I make 2 layers of the hue and saturation levels, like of the color balance and that. Then I use one to use like more of the harsher lines on the outside, and then I use the other one then to paint more on the inside and over other areas. That way it gives me greater control on what else. Obviously I use blend if as well, just to bring up in certain areas so that it actually matches a lot better. Then obviously I start off with zooming in. Now, one thing I find really important though is to zoom in, just get those areas quite right, so you're getting like, especially like the highlight on the edges quite right, but then zoom back out and then have a good look and see and make any corrections that you need to do. Now here I'm just basically making just subtle changes to the actual blur as well, like that, because the dinosaur wasn't as sharp as the man and it was looking a little bit odd. So I want to make a couple of little changes here. I was just working out whether I wanted to bring in some extra fog into the image and what else. It wasn't really suiting. I didn't really like the way that it was looking as I was playing this out. Sometimes it looks quite good, but I just felt that the way that these guys are situated is only in a small area. The background, especially from the mountains to the sky, looked far away, so I was quite happy with that. And with this one, as you're seeing in the final image now, all I did was just to change this up a bit with some color selectors, messed around with some values, bit of camera raw, and this was the final image. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this image. Hope this wasn't a little bit rushed. I try and keep it short just because I know everyone's very, very busy indeed, and just so that I can just shoot through it as fast as I possibly can. But I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, please drop a like, and also if you could subscribe to my channel, help this grow, that'd be absolutely amazing. But anyway, for now, goodbye.